Hey everyone. So let's talk about vertical angles and how we solve problems with them. So we now know what they are, and we know that vertical angles are equal to each other. So we're going to use that information to solve some problems. Sorry, I'm going to move my mic a little bit here. Solve some problems and see what we can figure out about them. So let's take a look at this first problem we have here. All right, so they're saying that this angle that's right here and this angle right here, we look at those and we should recognize that those are vertical angles, and because they're vertical angles, they're equal to each other. And they're telling us that this one right here is represented by the expression 2x plus 3, and this one right here is 143 degrees. So what we know about vertical angles is we know that they are equal to each other. So that gives us what we need then to set up our equation. So our equation is going to be 2x plus 3. Sorry, I got to start writing neater. 2x plus 3 equals 143 degrees because they're equal to each other. And so if I set them equal to each other, I got one variable, I can solve for that variable, and I can solve for x, which is what they're asking me to do right up here when they say solve for x. So 2x plus 3 equals 143. Move your 3 over to the other side by subtracting it. And that gives you 2x is equal to 140. And then the last part, this is now a one-step equation. You look at what's being done to x. Well, x is being multiplied by 2, so let's divide by 2. And then that gives us an answer of x equals 70. That doesn't mean it's 70 degrees. That means that if I plug 70 into this equation, I'm going to get 143 degrees, which we know we should get because they are vertical angles. So these are kind of like the easier problems to do. And now we're going to do one that's a little uglier. All right? So if we take a look at this, we got a couple different relationships we're going to have to explore here. So the question's asking us to solve for x and find the measures of all the angles. So all the angles means all of them. So there's 4 angles that we have to find the measures of, all right? And we can just write them in the diagram when we're doing it. So let's take a look at what we know. Well, and let's identify some vertical angles here. So I know that this angle and this angle are vertical angles. They're directly across from each other, right? They're opposite each other. They're not adjacent, and they share the same lines. So x and 42 are vertical angles, and we also know that vertical angles equal each other. So that means that x is equal to 42. So I've figured that much out, okay? So I know that this x is 42. And so there's a couple different ways you can approach finding out what this is. All right? So the easiest way would be to say, okay, let's take 3x plus 12 and substitute 42 in for it and see what that gives me. So if I go 3 times 42 plus 12, 3 times 42 gives me 126 plus 12 gives me 138, and that makes this 138 degrees right here. And then because we know that this is a vertical angle with this, I'm doing the double swoop because we used the single over here, this is 138 as well. And then at that point we should be able to confirm that, well, if these are correct, all of these angles, these two make up here, let's go with a different color here so you can see what I'm driving at here. These two make up a straight line. So 138 and 42 add up to 180, which is what we want. And then these will do the same thing. And if you have something going around an entire circle, right, so around the whole thing, that's always going to be 360 degrees. Now, something to think about here is, what if I hadn't given you this information? What if I just gave you the 3x plus 12 and the x? How could I have solved that? right? If I would have given you that. Well, you could have taken those two things and you could have said 3x plus 12 plus x equals, I know that those are supplementary angles. They would add up to 180. And then at that point, you would be able to, 4x plus 12 equals 180, subtract your 12, and you would get 4x equals 168. And I'm kind of going through this quickly. And then you would determine that x equals 42, and then you could put it in and find everything else. So a number of different ways to approach this problem, but we took it the easiest way and the most straightforward way, and that's kind of what I want to encourage you guys to do as a general rule.